Right, so I'll make a start. So last week I did kind of the underpainting on this one. I could do a little bit more, but I think in a way it wouldn't really register all that well because it's really just sort of working up little details now. So that's kind of almost like the first pass, and then I'll go back over and sort of build some textures in the background here, just a little bit more definition of the figures, and just kind of gradually give it another pass and go over that one. So that's that. What I thought I would also do, maybe do a quick demonstration, is a mixture of sort of blossom trees and bluebells, which I've noticed in a couple of the classes some students have been working on that as a subject. So I thought it might be a more useful demonstration just to do a little bit of that. So these are sort of partly started demos, and I might as well start with that with bluebells. The other thing I'll talk about in a minute is next month's project. So this is the last of this month. So this will be the last session on the springtime for me anyway. You can carry on if you want to. You're very welcome to. So something like these sort of areas, I've noticed quite a few students have, find this real challenge, and I do myself as well. Where you've got sort of areas that almost look quite purpley, quite greeny, but quite a variety of blues in there and quite a variety of greens. So sometimes what I might do is, you could probably either start with the purple or the green. I don't usually worry too much. I quite often start in the background and work forward. So perhaps I'll start with the purples, as there's some here. So some ultramarine blue, and a little bit of just a tiny bit of magenta to make a slightly bluebelly kind of lilac-y colour. A little bit of white, but I want to keep the colour fairly strong to start with. So just working some, and I tend to go a little bit, I don't want to make them too sort of mechanical looking. So basically varying the brush work a little bit and going for an impressionistic sort of look. So that could be some of the darks, maybe one or two really even darker bits in there, just a tiny bit. So while that paint's still wet, I'll just work some. And the other thing is, this is sort of it's acrylics, but it's working into wet paint, and I quite like that, the way that the paint flows and kind of manipulate it when it's wet. And then the next stage is really a lighter colour over the top. Just picking up some of the highlights. A little bit of lighter still. And the same sort of random kind of brush marks. A few kind of dots and dashes and just a few lights in there. And then I think I'll work some of the greens as well. You'll find that some of the blues actually run into the greens, so I can touch some of the blues down like that. And I'll get a different brush and that was neat, colourful green. So I mix a fairly strong green, got a quite bright yellow. So that could be some of the brighter bits, and then go a little bit darker into that. I find with yellow, it's quite a transparent colour, unless you've got like proper cadmium, which is really opaque. So sometimes I usually like to work dark to light, but if it's something like yellow, if I put it too dark to start with and try to put the light over the top, it just wouldn't cover it. So I quite often like to go a little bit lighter to start with. So into that, I can then work a slightly lighter green. And I rather like painting bluebells because the sort of subject, you can paint in quite a nice impressionistic, quite a free way. I don't feel I have to labour the drawing too much. And then just going really bright, so where the light's sort of really, it's lovely bright sunlight, so we're catching the grasses as to work through. I might be better off switching to a slightly sharper brush here, but let's just try and get it on its side. Yeah, something along those lines. Blossom trees is the same sort of thing. We'll just do a little bit of a blossom tree. Let's do that one. So this one I could just carry this on. I've sort of done a little bit of underpainting here. For me it's like a reddy browny colour perhaps in here, perhaps a tiny bit of black or something just to darken it. So some quite strong shadows just under here. Sort of going over what I've painted already. And then mid-tone, so again just lighten up what I've got a little bit white. And then just sort of kind of gradually working lighter. I know when I've done quite a few blossom paintings in the past, and it's a subject I really enjoy. Not actually managed to get out painting this year. But I do find that going darker first and then working sort of dark to light really seems to pay off. It's a matter of just picking how many little bobbles I try and include. So it might be just, some I'll paint quite broadly and then perhaps just a few smaller dots at the end might be enough just to suggest the kind of feel of the blossom. So I do a little bit like that. But what I tend to look for is almost like rhythms and movement throughout the trees, rather than try and copy every little bit religiously. Just try and get a little bit of the character of how the branches behave and the trees behave. So that's that. All right with that? Thought I'd just spend a couple of minutes talking about next month's project. So next month is a 4-week month. So the project I've got in mind is working from, it could be modern masters, old masters, basically using another artist's work as inspiration. So it could be like a direct copy, or you could try and emulate the style, perhaps use one of your own images, but style. So obviously I'll take it in stages. So that's a theme, if you wanted to use that as a theme. If you don't, you're very welcome, you're welcome to your own project.
Following Picasso then, wouldn't we?
Picasso would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah. Well, it might be nice to sort of pick something that's really different from what you would normally do, or something, or even something you really don't like. Like if you don't like the abstract expressionist, maybe do some abstract paintings. Or it's quite nice sometimes to just get yourself out of your comfort zone and just try something else. And I think it's a way of moving your own work forward, really. And it's something we did, like when I was at art school, we did a bit of copying. We were definitely encouraged to go into the galleries, like the National Gallery, the Tate, do some sketching, and I've done that sometimes with my own classes. We've been up to London. I think you've been with me, been to the galleries and sketch. So it's a really, it's a great way of, just really, well, for a start, it gets you to really look at paintings. We look at paintings in the same way as we look at everything else, which is just a quick glance, and then we move on. But if you actually start and, physically sketch or draw or even paint, it does get you to really look carefully in the way that you'd look at anything else, really. So that's quite a nice thing. And also maybe broaden our understanding of different art movements and things like that.
Paul, can we copy the master Paul Alcock?
We do that every week. Don't tell him.
I hadn't thought of that one. Don't know if I quite consider myself up there. The ones, right, so what I have got is, there's a couple of books here. I've got techniques here, so I'll bring these in over the weeks and you're welcome to look at them. I've also got these are cards that I got given by, I think most of them cards, some are just photos actually, I think that's a photo taken. Yeah, something like that. So it's all sorts of different kinds of artwork. So that's probably like a Chinese one or an Indian one or something like that. But it's just all sorts of, you know, artworks. I've got like a whole, so that's some teas. So I've got a whole set of these. So I mean that could be good one, work something and a Matisse done. Yeah, so I've got a set of these, but there's only like one of each one. So what I'm thinking is, if you wanted to use something, just make. If you wanted to have a look through today, there's 3 folders of these. I've got some stick-it notes. Just put a stick-it note on any that you'd like to use. Then if I've got more than one person wants to use the same thing, I'll do a copy of it. So that's all. But I can do that ongoingly anyway. But I just thought if you want to get prepared today, we can start and like that. Okay, so they're in these 3 folders just there. Okay. Yeah.